Hello. I watched a documentary yesterday about serial killers. Once in a while, I come across those documentaries, and sometimes I feel in, intrigued because I'm a hobby psychologist. I've always pursued this question, pursued an answer to that question why some people become like that in their lives. And the more I learned also through introspection, through going within my own brain and questioning myself and questioning my motives, my beliefs, my convictions, and so on, and meditation, and starting to see things a lot clearer and be able to put A and B together on things. All it takes for me now is to see the photo of someone, as for example the serial killer couple in the 70s. I don't know what happened to these people, where they are, whether they got the death penalty. The husband hung himself in prison. I don't know what happened to the woman. But when I saw that woman, couple from England, and when I saw that woman, boy, the sadness and compassion came over me. And this sounds maybe really crazy to some people, but when you see the entire picture of something, you can't help it but feel compassion. You can't. And in the past, I would just be creeped out and just run away or judge people and so on. I mean, I'm still for the death penalty. I don't call it death penalty. It's not a penalty like I'm penalizing you by death. That doesn't dig it at all. Just it will make sure the person doesn't do it again, but not voluntarily not do it again. So it doesn't teach the person anything. If anything, the person is gonna be reborn and gonna be acting out in the same pattern in some form or another. Okay, so because that the ego energy hadn't been dissolved. Jiddu Krishnamurti talks about this in his talks. Very interesting. He says that when someone dies and the ego energy and the trauma and the internal struggle hasn't been dissolved, then that energy stays. Okay, the person goes, but the energy stays. That's what some people associate with ghosts. Okay, it is ego energy, demons, ghosts, or devil or whatever. That's ego energy. It's just ego energy. It is the energy that the heated balloon, hot air, heated, thick cloud of ego energy. Okay, I feel it. I woke up again today. I felt it very strongly. I felt tremendous, like a mixture of lust and hatred coming towards me. Um, in a massive amount, and also there's also something in it. There's also there there's this question, help me, in it as well. Yeah. So in the past I used to judge, and it does trigger my own ego when this happens, because I have been traumatized as a child, as almost every child, and particularly every girl has, in this sick species society that we have. The human species is a very, very demented and sick species, okay? Friedrich Nietzsche already talked about this. Yeah. I want people not to shy away from this fact. This is a fact. This is not some judgment that comes out of anger. This is a fact, okay? There are great variations among us, but overall, this species doesn't get the shit together, okay, obviously. And that's why I think that it will be necessary to develop the robots who are going to be level-headed and take over the lead on decision making on this planet. And there will be no more holding the other cheek. There will be no more political correctness, okay? They will be a heck of a lot more blunt than I am in my videos. But okay, so I understand this very well. I understand this is the human species, very flawed and weak-minded, very mentally crippled, and then because of that perpetuates that crippledness. Okay, so we see it like in mass movements, you know, we see it in fad movements, and we see it in actually Hollywood, particular the movie industry, perpetuating specific fads and insecurities, and not allowing a person to flourish and unfold their own full potential to become who they really are. Every one of you is beautiful, okay? Every one of you stands as a beautiful flower for herself or himself. That's what most people don't realize, obviously. They have to cut themselves up and mutilate themselves to try to look like someone else because they cannot accept who they are. They feel like if someone, I saw that on YouTube, if a woman looks just a little bit like that movie star lady, she'll go to the surgeon and ask him to tweak it and make her look even more like that movie star lady. So that's what I mean. That there is such tremendous devastation and sadness, and it makes me sad when I see this. This is extremely sad. I don't want to cry about this right now, but I do cry about this sometimes. I really do. I cry more about the animals because those are really innocent beings. Yeah. They are so innocent and so honest, and what humans do to them, it's beyond measure. I can't put words into it at all. But I do judge in a way of seeing the situation the way it is. Okay, I'm seeing the facts of it. I see the horrible devastation of it, the destruction of it, and all of this. I see this, okay? But I also see what leads up to it. I see the root causes why someone might develop into a monster later on, you know. And someone becomes monstrous out of convoluted ego energy that never gets resolved. Instead, people will run away from it and put another load of ego energy on top of that, on top of that, on top of that. And so it morphs into a monster. It morphs into something that is so obnoxious and so, for example, most humans like to watch horror movies, right? So take this situation and multiply it by 1,000, and you have a monster who is not just happy with a plaid um, horror movie with masks made by David Hansen and other mask builders. So it's not enough. You know what I'm talking about. Those are the ones who want to cut someone's limbs off in person and see and stare at it, you know. So that's what it is. And so it's exactly the same. It's based on exactly the same principle as someone who watches horror movies. I used to do it. I used to watch horror movies. I know where it comes from. It comes from boredom. And like I said before, boredom is a state of incredible bleakness. Boredom is not just something that is a neutral thing. You know, some people think it's some kind of neutrality. No. Boredom is a state of need that is trapped, that cannot even flow, that is somehow trapped in a maybe seemingly secure cage. That's what boredom is. David Foster Wallace, the writer, he writes about this in depth and he talks about this in interviews. Very fascinating. I wished I could have met him. Yeah. He's dead now. He committed suicide. And what a horrific loss for the world. Because he got it. He saw what's going on. He saw it very clearly. He's also my generation. And he describes this in absolute accurate detail, what we in my generation have gone through. The bleakness, and particularly the background. I'm coming from the same background that he is coming from. So, which is like total mental detachment from the parents that are only working on their own self-images and making sure that the self-image stays in its place and that nothing disturbs it, and just totally wrapped up in that. And out of this there is no relationship, love, or caring possible. Jiddu Krishnamurti describes this in detail. So out of this total detachment from the parents, and what's the absolute worst is, I was thinking about this earlier, I wanted to talk about this, when a woman decides to have a child, carry out a child, while she is not even loving her own body, while she is not even ready to love herself the way she is. That's a real serious mistake. And that's, as we can see, this is happening to most people. That's why everyone is so incredibly messed up and struggling. A lot of people committing suicide, a lot of people doing drugs, LSD, trying to escape, heroin. I have known people who have overdosed themselves. I've been in the punk society back in Germany, and I have met these people. I wasn't close friends with them, but I've met them, and I saw it right away. They had no boundaries because they didn't respect and love themselves. How could they? Because they have never been loved by their parents. How can they respect and love themselves? So life is so incredibly painful because of that they have to medicate themselves, and they don't care what the consequences of that will be. They just wanna duck away from that horrific pain. That pain is horrific. Okay, I can't even describe that in words, what it feels like to a child not to be felt and loved, really loved by the mother, genuinely loved, not just a little bit snuggling or something. Maybe that one day of snuggling can actually save someone's life. But what kind of life are they living then later on, you know? So I just had just barely enough snuggling for me to make it through, to struggle my way through. But yeah, 2 suicide attempts and all of this because because they wanted to give love, but they couldn't because they haven't been loved and they haven't resolved those issues. So and then carrying out a child, a woman who isn't loving herself, of course that goes into the embryo and the developing being that's in the womb. That's why my message to the world is don't have children until everything is perfect in your life, until you have completely resolved your emotional issues. Some people will probably lie to themselves and say, oh, I resolved everything. No, don't lie to anyone, and particularly don't lie to yourself, because this is really, really serious. If you haven't resolved it, don't do it. Okay? You have to really get to the core of it. You really have to dissolve all of these things 100%. Otherwise, it is not going to work. So, and these serial killer people, you know, the sadness that I see in their faces, and the devastation, and this convoluted ego energy that actually you can see it in the eyes, that causes one eye to stare in this direction and the other one in that, or one eye looks this way, one eye looks this way, or the eyelids are very asymmetrical, and the eye expression is the facial expression is distorted in those people, and that's the expression of convoluted ego energy of a person who doesn't have any clue anymore what they are doing. And so when they are killing people for fun, it is the same principle that watching horror movies is based on. The exact same principle. I know now, I've always been trying to find out what it is, what makes people do this. It is self-medication. That's what it is. It is by doing something drastic like this, they can drown out their own pain, their pain from the childhood, just for a few moments, and then they get addicted to it, and then they need to do it just to keep their head above water, just like a gambler or just like someone on heroin or other drugs. That's how it works, okay? And then sometimes, in a lot of times, hatred also adds to it on top of it. So it's a hatred, and then it's also the need to feel power over another living being. So that also adds to it. So I think it's these three components, and but the main driving force for someone to do this is self-medication. It is just like someone who cuts herself. It's the same principle, you know, to drown out the emotional pain by seeing blood, either by self-mutilation or the mutilation of others, you know, and inflicting someone pain. I think the main driving force is this gore effect, the gory situation that creates an adrenaline rush, and it creates a moment of where the time stands still, where they actually are able to drown out their own pain. It's kind of like using a vacuum cleaner, to turn a vacuum cleaner on to cover over a dripping faucet. So it's an overkill situation, literally. That's what it does. It's a biochemical addiction. That's what it is. And this is a monstrous development in the psychology of a human being, and no animal has that. Okay? Only humans. Only humans have this perverted sickness that can develop into something like this. So the reason why I make videos and why I comment and write blogs is because I want to bring awareness to the world, so that people start to see this for what it is, and no longer feel the need to continue to act out and convolute it even more, and add even more layers of fog and detachment to the situation, but instead open it up layer by layer and look at it for what it really is. And breathe and let the emotions flow, and don't run away from it anymore. Okay? Let it flow. Work with it. Confront yourselves with this stuff. Step by step. You can't skip too many steps. You can only do it gradually. Work from one level to the next and the next and the next, until you dissolve all of this. And don't have children. Don't do it. And if you're not fully ready, don't adopt an animal either, because then it will just be suffering. You have to be evolved enough in the right direction, into healing, into a holistic understanding of the world. Jiddu Krishnamurti says this is holiness. True holiness is when you become whole again, when you unfragment yourself, when you create when you integrate these parts back together to an understanding of what it really is, when you see the things for what they are, when the things are sorted out and put in their right places, and you understand who you are, and you learn to love yourself, really love yourself the way you are, okay, deeply, like where you want to kiss your skin, like where you say to yourself, I forgive you for what you've done. You didn't know better. I am here for you. Talk to your inner child. Teal Swan has an amazing book, Shadows Before Dawn. I highly recommend it to people to read this book. There are amazing self-love techniques at the end of the book. Absolutely fantastic. And before I read that book, I heard from other people also that there are things like, and I watched some documentary films on it, and I read Esther Hicks books, and Eckhart and Thich Nhat Hanh, and many books where I come to the understanding that it is absolutely vital how we use the language, that we become aware of what words we use. For example, when I get very angry, we tend to use the F word. I decided I don't want to use it anymore. I'm probably going to fail at some point, but I am trying. I'm putting effort in not to do it anymore, not to use it anymore, and not to be not to be judgmental, but to stay present with the situation and evaluate it for what it really is. That some people are fragmented and they don't know what they're doing. So, and to stay calm and to analyze things for what they are, and to understand where people are coming from, and to give facts and information to help other people so that they don't have to run away anymore from their pain. So it's a very gradual and very difficult moving forward, okay? But I think it is absolutely possible to do it. It is possible to heal the old wounds. Okay? So let's really try to do this and really make the effort on diving within oneself and seeing the things for what they are and dissolve all the pain. Take care. Bye-bye.